Bhakti Devi ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We are reading, studying, and discussing Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 3, text number 202. Shashi Shekhar Prabhu, are you up to?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu, I can read it. I'll do my best. Anandita Han Shachi Karena Randhan Shuk Bhojana Kare Prabhu Lan Bhaktagan.
Mother Sachi cooked with great pleasure, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with the devotees, accepted the prasadam with great pleasure. So this is after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. Then 3 days he wandered in Radha Desh, and then was misdirected by, or somehow he was hoping to go to Vrindavan. He came by Nityananda Prabhu's direction to the bank of the Ganges at Advaita Acharya's house. So then Chandrasekhar brought Mother Sachi and other devotees from Navadvip to meet Lord Chaitanya at Advaita Acharya's house. Mother Sachi requested all the devotees who were inviting Lord Chaitanya for being able to cook for him. She said, no, let me cook, please. So here she's cooking with great pleasure. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with the devotees, accepted prasadam with great pleasure. Okay, page 203.
Acharya Shrad Bhakti Griha Sampada Dhane Sakala Safal Hoi Hoira Prabhura Arhadane.
In this way, all the opulences of Advaita Acharya, his faith, devotion, home, riches, and everything else were successfully utilized in the worship of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. Advaita Acharya set an ideal example for all householder devotees in his reception of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, and in his execution of a daily festival at his home. If one has the proper means and wealth, he should occasionally invite the devotees of Lord Chaitanya who are engaged in preaching all over the world and hold a festival at home simply by distributing prasadam and talking about Krishna during the day and holding congregational chanting for at least 3 hours in the evening. This procedure must be adopted in all centers of the Krishna consciousness movement. Thus, they will daily perform Sankirtan Yajna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.532, The daily performance of Sankirtan Yajna is recommended for this age. Jagyayar Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumed Hasa. One should worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his four associates, the Panchatattva, by distributing prasadam and holding congregational chanting. Indeed, that yajna or sacrifice is most recommended in this age of Kali. In this age, other yajnas are not possible to perform, but this yajna can be performed everywhere and anywhere without difficulty. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyanan Jana Shlakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupagada Mahyam Dadati Shapandantika Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I would like to ask the permission and blessings of all the devotees, particularly those who are senior, age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. So this verse, it reminds me of the prayer by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Sharanagati. Manasa deho geho jo kichumor arpiluntua pade nandakishore. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays, my mind, manasa, deho, body, geho, home, jo kichumor, whatever I have in my possession, whatever is mine, or I think is mine, arpiluntua pade nandakishore. I offer to your lotus feet, your two lotus feet, Nandakishore. Sampade vipade, in good fortune and in bad times, happiness and distress, sampade vipade, jivana marane, during my life and at death, I have no other business but to take shelter of your lotus feet and serve your lotus feet. Advaita Acharya, as a perfect Acharya, is giving us example about how to do that by inviting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into his home and then holding a festival of the chanting of the holy names of the Lord in his home every evening. And it's for at least 3 hours. It says at least 3 hours in his home. And this yajna is the yajna that is particularly emphasized by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly for this age of Kali. The verse is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Krite yadhyayato Vishnu Tretayam yajjata makai dvapare parichayayam kalotad parikirtanam. All the benefits that might have accrued in the Satya Yuga for performing Astanga Yoga and meditation, Dhyayato Vishnu, in the Treta Yuga by doing elaborate sacrifices, fire sacrifices, in the Dvapara Yuga by performing elaborate deity worship according to cleanliness and punctuality and giving offerings, that all that can be successfully achieved, the results of that, by chanting the holy names of the Lord, particularly congregationally together. Srila Prabhupada has often mentioned that we cannot think that the benefits of those in this age are to reach the full benefit of those is possible. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes the process of Ashtanga Yoga, and he starts out by saying, you have to go away to a secluded place. Do you remember this? Usually the yogis would go to the Himalayas and practice very rigidly the tenets of Ashtanga Yoga. And maybe they would come down once every 11 years for the Kumbh Mela at Allahabad. But generally they're alone in the forests or the hills, mountains in the Himalayas practicing. And because their duration of life is in Satya Yuga was up to 100,000 years, they had time to make progress in that discipline. But in Kali Yuga, right in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya were warning us, Prayen alpayusha shabya kalavasmin yuge jana. Kali Yuga, we don't have the time. Very short-lived. Alpa ayusha. Alpa means very small. Alpa ayusha, small, limited life duration. Prayan alpayusha shabya kalavasmin yuge jana. In Kali Yuga, manda, we're kind of dull-headed. And not just me, but anyway. Manda, sumanda matayo, we're misguided. Well, there's leaders, but usually so many times the leaders have no idea about spiritual life. Andaya tandaya rupaniyamana. They're blind people leading other blind people. And when that happens, everybody falls in the ditch. Sumanda matayo manda bhagya, unlucky and always agitated in the mind. So the Ashtanga Yoga not possible. Treta Yoga, the big sacrifices were done, but in Kali Yuga we can't gather all the materials. Neither can the priests who used to do those sacrifices. Can they chant the mantras properly? So Srila Prabhupada, in a couple of purports, he mentioned that it's mostly for show, the fire sacrifices, although might be a very big show, a nice show. And of course, Srila Prabhupada did do fire sacrifices for initiations and for deity installations, but he didn't do them very elaborately. Actually, they were very simple. And even the deity worship, we do the deity worship, but it's been simplified to such an extent, because the main activity of the Hare Krishna movement, that's why we call it the Hare Krishna movement, is this Jagyar Sankirtana Praya Yajantihi Sumedhasa. If we're smart, we'll put our eggs in that basket, although we don't eat eggs, but we'll do it that way. So Yagya and Advaita Acharya, as the example, Acharya is giving us hint on how to do that here in this pastime of Lord Caitanya. And anytime there's a chanting of the holy names, it's also recommended that we distribute prasadam along with the chanting, and that makes it perfect. And this way, it's mentioned in this verse that that's how he successfully utilized his all those things in the worship of Lord Chaitanya. Questions, comments, addition?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Forgive my voice, please. I'm rather ill. Prabhu, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I appreciate it. I'm questioning and always have wondered if in the other three yugas, have you read of mention of them also chanting Hare Krishna? Was
Yes.
that incorporated? And where have you read about that?
Well, you know that Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada mentions he was chanting Hare Krishna.
Oh, yes.
But wasn't particularly in this yuga. The Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, that was at the beginning of the Kali Yuga, right? But the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam was already present. And the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam is there that Caitanya Vidyamananam Ichtatam Katobayam Yoginam Nirnitam Harinam Anukirtanam. Chanting the names of the Lord according to the ways, the methods of the great authorities, that's the doubtless and fearless way of success for all. So anyway, that's not really a very clear example of what you're mentioning. Perhaps somebody else has. I could do some research on that. I think it's a good question. Do you have any references? Particularly, we're talking about the chanting of the holy names in other ages as being a method of success. We know that Valmiki Muni, which was at least culminated in Treta Yuga, was chanting Mara, 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 and became Ram, wasn't it? So my understanding is that it was there, but it wasn't like the only method. And in Kali Yuga, nothing else really will bring you to the full understanding of Krishna and his service to Krishna.
Prabhu, would the would the Upanishads be a place to look for
Upanishads?
that? Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
There's Acharya, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, I don't have a comment on that question, but I have something else, if I may.
Oh, okay.
I really love this in the purport. In the first sentence, Prabhupada is saying that the householder devotees have to do these things. And next sentence, he says, if you have the proper means and the wealth, you should do all these things. And then the next sentence, he says, this procedure must be adopted in all centers of the Krishna consciousness movement. It sounds like he's not drawing a distinction between the quote unquote centers of the Krishna consciousness movement, like the official temples and the householders' homes. He seems to be equating them in this injunction of what to do, of distributing prasad and inviting people and preaching and harinam. So I like that in this purport, that he's the same injunctions are there for the individual homes as for the established temples. Or that's my understanding of what he's saying here.
Very good point. Very good point. There's there seems to be equating those two. Yeah, the responsibilities of both. Yes.
If I may, also, I was thinking, I've thought about this quite a bit, actually, that over the past few decades, the frequency of home programs has increased tremendously. When I joined the movement, right when Prabhupada left this world, no one had home programs. Everything was at the temple. I don't know if you had that same experience as Prabhupada disciples, but certainly I don't remember that even spreading like that into the homes until maybe the mid-80s. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I do see how that's becoming more and more popular, a way of spreading Krishna consciousness, to invite devotees into your home. And maybe Prabhupada sounds like he had some vision of that happening.
Interesting question, interesting point. You know, when Srila Prabhupada traveled, especially outside of the United States, in India, in London, in Africa, he was often invited to people's homes, and devotees would accompany him to this program, sometimes 4, 5, 6 different homes in a day. But I think you're correct that in the United States, that aspect of Krishna consciousness wasn't as prevalent in the early days in this country. I think you're right about that. I can remember at a certain point I was put in charge of life membership in New York City. And part of that life membership was that we would arrange home programs in people's homes. And life members, although there were many life members who were from an Asian Indian background, many of the life members, at least at that time, were also from American background, Western background. And so we would also arrange meetings in their homes, and devotees would come, and we'd have kirtan, and there'd be prasadam talks like that. So at least in New York at that time, that was right near around the time of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. It started at least in New York. And I remember there was another a man, he passed away now, Manmohan Daga, who every year held a 24-hour kirtan in his home. And that tradition continued, starting probably around 1976, and then went on for like 30 years. Every year, once a year, he'd do that. He would invite many, many devotees, and there would be a big prasadam. And devotees from all over the East Coast, I would invite them to come. And it was a festival. It was a great festival. And so I think you're correct that it's become more prevalent, but it wasn't absent, at least in places like India and London. Acharya Prabhu.
Yet this is a really interesting topic, especially if you take it like in the view of the whole evolution of ISKCON, that what to speak of home programs, there was a period of time when the idea of devotees living in their own homes was not even accepted very much. What to speak of devotees in homes doing programs. If you weren't in the temple, then it was, we used to have all sorts of expressions and attitudes about people living outside the temple. So that had to evolve a little bit in order for those home devotees to allow them to sort of become empowered and recognized to be able to do that. So the whole, growth and history of ISKCON is, tied up with that, I think.
Very interesting, very wonderful point, Acharya Prabhu. I appreciate that. Yeah. See, I can remember myself thinking, so devotees, there would be people coming to the temple, and you would preach in a certain way to them, and especially people who you think, well, they're never going to join the temple and move in. What's the use of preaching to them?
Yeah.
But over time, I know that, of course, I joined in 1971, and there was one Indian gentleman. His name was Jayanti Desai. So he tells me that, Srila Prabhupada came there in 1971 to Henry Street, Brooklyn. And he heard, the guru of the Hare Krishna movement's coming to, so he came with his friend. He was working in Jersey City. He came with his friend and came to a class that Srila Prabhupada gave in the temple on a Thursday night. And the temple was packed with all Western devotees. And he didn't get a seat inside, so he was listening to the class outside, just outside where the open door. And as Prabhupada walked out, he saw him and he said, come with me. And he brought him to his quarters and he preached to them there. We weren't going to preach to him, but he preached to them. And Prabhupada didn't bring me to his quarters or anybody else. He brought that person to his quarters. So it's very, very interesting. Prabhupada could see as you're saying, the development anyway, it's very interesting. Thank you for that comment. And there's another purport Prabhupada mentioned that if one doesn't want to or can't live in the temple, that's all right, but make your home into a temple and chant Hare Krishna and offer all the food to Krishna, all your offerings to Krishna, and that will be sufficient to go back to Godhead. He said that to the Kurma Brahmin. Wherever, stane stita shutikatam tanuvag manobi. Stay in your position. Don't change, but always chant the holy names and introduce others to Krishna consciousness through like home programs, etc. And Lord Chaitanya, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can go into everybody's home at the same time. When Lord Krishna went to Mithila, he was invited by Bahulashva, and what was the name of the king? Was that the king? Shrutadev, yeah. So he was invited to two places, and he went to both at the same time. That's God. Lord Chaitanya can go to everybody's home, expanding his Gaura deities or as his holy name and his devotees. Thank you.
Hare
Other
Krishna.
comments? Go ahead. Yes?
So yes, this is a very nice conversation. I'm seeing Prabhupada says here this procedure must be adopted in all centers of the Krishna conscious movement. This 3 hours in the evening, although it doesn't seem that we see that as a formal type program in the temples. Is that something that we as a movement should strive for to actually do in the temples as a formal program, or do we see this in a different way, such as it's not a direct order to do that in the temples daily?
Well, it's a pretty direct statement. I know my understanding is that Srila Prabhupada really emphasized this in Mayapur, in Vrindavan, in any of the major temples. He was really emphasizing it, but he also wanted it done in all temples. Um, in New York at the time, I don't think we did this. It wasn't taken very strongly. Over time, it's probably a good idea. That's the order of the spiritual master, that one do that. And I read also another place where Srila Prabhupada said, going out in the to chant the holy names, to introduce it to others is very wonderful. But chanting the Hare Krishna mantra in the temple is 1,000 times more pleasing to Krishna. Usually you see it the other way, isn't it? That Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing Sankirtan, going out and chanting. But in this place, I'll have to get that reference. He's saying it's 1,000 times more pleasing to Krishna than the Kirtan in the temple. So anyway, Acharya Prabhu.
I'm sorry to keep on butting in. That
That's
reminds
good.
me also, just like it said, chanting and devotional service you do in the Holy Dham also has an advantage. But we understand that you go to the Holy Dham and you chant, and then you come back from that and you preach.
Yes.
So even when it's an internal thing or an inside thing, that's also to, sort of empower us and excite us and enthuse us for preaching also. So even if in the temple is so much better, but that's still to prepare us for going outside too.
Wonderful comment. Like Lord Chaitanya himself, he did the nocturnal kirtans for a year, every night for
Yeah.
many hours with his associates. He didn't allow people in. You think, oh, Lord Chaitanya, he's the Vadanya avatar. He's the most magnanimous, but he's kept people from coming into his kirtans for a year. What's that about? You wonder.
Yeah, you could almost see that as like, warm up or rehearsal for taking it out on the streets.
Yes. So it's I mean, I never heard Prabhupada say that, but it seems like that. I would agree with you in that way.
No,
And so then,
that's my speculative words, not his.
yeah, mine too. I agree with you.
But I think you could, it's not crazy to look at it that way, that, all the devotees were getting so, excited and empowered and all these amazing things. And then what did they do? Eventually it poured out onto the streets.
Yes. Thank you for that. So Shashi Shikhar, what do you think?
Well, it seems like an organized kirtan type of Sankirtan process in the temple is what Srila Prabhupada is asking for. And it does appear that we put an emphasis on doing programs and things in the temple, or even in general in the movement, on preaching, like just things that are not necessarily Sankirtan, on the idea that we should be preaching, although sometimes it does appear that direct orders and the actual process of Sankirtan is being, I wouldn't say lost, but it's, kind of being brushed over. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting practical dynamic of what it would take to actually have this take place.
Yeah, it'd be, yes. Just have to be interested in following the order and see how we can implement it. And it could be, hopefully it could be done. That'd be very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya, probably. Okay, yeah,
Hare Krishna.
yes.
I recall in San Diego, we began a Wednesday evening gathering. We would invite everyone, including people who would come regularly on Sundays. We would begin the evening with Tulsi Puja and lots of chanting. And occasionally we would have a movie night on Wednesday night where we would show movies of Prabhupada on a big screen. But usually it was a minimal prasadam distribution. We didn't emphasize a huge meal, but we definitely distributed some prasad and just chanted into the evening. I would say probably at least 2 hours of chanting. It was quite a successful program.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Thank you for that. I know Srila Prabhupada, whenever Srila Prabhupada had some kind of, if his illness became a little prominent, then all the temples would begin 24-hour kirtans at that time. So it was done, but perhaps not as regularly as is being mentioned here. But that's the Hare Krishna movement's thing, isn't it? Chanting the holy name as much as possible, whether it's outside the temple, inside the temple, both places, in your home, all those places. Kirtaniya Shadahari. And we'll see, I mean, how we can do that more and more in our own lives for our own benefit and for the benefit of others. We can plan and think about that, and that's part of the association of devotees, how we can maximize it in our own lives and in our association with others. Thank you. Text 204.
Prachira Ananda Bhade, Dheki Putra Mukha, Bhojana Karanya, Purna Koila Nija Shuk.
As Mother Sachi constantly saw the face of her son and fed him, her own happiness increased, and it was indeed complete.
E Mata Advaita Grihe, Bhakta Gane Mile, Banchira Kataka Dina Maha Kuthale, Kutuhale.
Kutuhale, in a greatly festive mood. Kutuhale is festival. In this way, at Advaitacharya's house, all the devotees met and passed some days together in a greatly festive mood. We know that prayer by Lochan Das Thakur, Parama Karuna Pahudvijan Nitai Gorachandra Shab Avatar Shar Shiramani Kevala Ananda Kanda. The Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda are the topmost, give the topmost mercy because they're giving a process of self-realization, which is joyfully done. It's fun, greatly festive mood. They had a good time, pleasing Krishna by chanting his holy names. 206.
Aradina Prabhu Kahe, Shab Bhakti Gan, Nija Nija Grihe Shabe, Karaha Gamane.
The next day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested all the devotees to return to their respective homes.
Kare Giya Karashab Krishna Sankirtan Punarapi Ama Sange Haibe Milan.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also asked them to execute the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord at their homes. And he assured them that they would be able to meet him again.
Prabhuva Tomar Karibe Niladri Gaman Kabuba Ashiba Ami Karite Ganga Snana.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told them, sometimes you will come to Jagannath Puri, and sometimes I shall come bathe in the Ganges.
Nityananda Goshani Pandita Jagananda Damodara Pandita Aratata Mukunda E Chari Jana Acharya Dila Prabhushane Yanani Prabodha Kari Bandila Charane.
Sri Advaita Acharya sent 4 persons, Nityananda Gosai, Jagadananda Pandit, Damodar Pandit, and Mukunda Datta, to accompany the Lord. After pacifying his mother, Sachimata, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu submitted prayers to her lotus feet.
Tanve Pradakshina Kari Kariya Gamana Eta Acharjera Gare Hutila Karandhan.
When everything was arranged, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu circumambulated his mother and then started for Jagannath Puri in the house of Advaita Acharya. In pure period, in the house of Advaita Acharya, there arose tumultuous crying. There was a message there by Acharya Prabhu about what do you make of Lord Chaitanya's statement that he would sometimes come to bathe in the Ganges? Does anyone have any comment about that? Perhaps Acharya Prabhu has a comment.
I don't have a comment. I'm just curious about it. I'm not sure how often or how much or if at all he actually did that after he left.
Yeah, he did it once, as far as I know. The first, after he took sannyas, then he came to Advaita Acharya's house. Then the first time from Puri, he tried to go to Vrindavan, or at least, he came through Bengal. And at that time, he bathed in the Ganges. Remember?
Okay, yeah, I forgot that incident. Yes.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't know. And of course, at that time, he may have bathed in the Ganges, more than once. And then on his return from Vrindavan, when he actually made it to Vrindavan, he came and bathed in the Ganges at Prayag, but we don't hear that he came to Bengal and bathed in the Ganges. So those are the 2 times I know. Maybe others know. But he did at least do it once.
Yeah. Or maybe he hoped to, or maybe he was just trying to pacify the devotees. I'm not sure.
Yeah, all those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nirapeksha Hon Prabhu Shigra Karila Kondite Acharya Paschat Chalila.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was unaffected. He left swiftly, and Advaita Acharya followed him, weeping. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, the word nirapeksha means not being affected by anything material and remaining fixed in the service of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not very much care for the roaring tumult and cry at the house of Advaita Acharya, which he heard when starting for Jagannath Puri. Worldly moralists may criticize Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for being very cruel, but the Lord did not care for such criticism. As the world teacher of this Krishna consciousness movement, he actually showed that a person seriously engaged in Krishna consciousness should not be affected by worldly affection. The best course is to engage in rendering service to the Lord and to become callous to material objectives. Externally, everyone is attached to material things, but if one becomes entangled in such things, he cannot make progress in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness should not care for the so-called morality of the material world, if that morality opposes the service of the Lord. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has previously personally shown, one cannot properly execute Krishna consciousness without being neutral. Very wonderful purport. I'm remembering an interaction that Srila Prabhupada had with Tamal Krishna Maharaj before he became sannyas. He was the first GBC in India. And well, of course, at that time when he became GBC was formulated in 1970. And up to that time, Srila Prabhupada's activities were primarily in the West. But shortly thereafter, he spent most of his time in India. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was right there. And initially, he was a householder. So there was one time he talks about when he went to see Srila Prabhupada and he was struggling because he had so many services to do and it was hard for him to keep track of everything, especially in India, because in India there's unlimited details and unlimited things to know about things that in the West we have no idea about. It's just like mind-boggling. So he went to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada, he was practically crying. And he was telling Srila Prabhupada about his troubles. And you know what Srila Prabhupada did? He laughed. This is according to Tamal Krishna Maharaj's memory. He laughed. And it just blew Tamal Krishna's mind. He said, what is going on? But then Srila Prabhupada explained that because you're engaged in service, all this is a way for you just to become free from Maya. And this is Krishna's helping you to become free. And so after that, he really considered his explanation and he realized that's true. And he became joyful. Similarly, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is lamenting about the situation at the beginning of the battle, and he's crying, throwing it down his Gandiva bow. He can't do it. What was Lord Krishna's reaction? Remember?
Do your duty.
Smile.
You're acting
What's that?
it, but you're being a phone.
Prahasan Iva Bharata. Prahasan. What does Prahasan mean? Smiling. He's smiling. So Arjuna is like suffering like anything, at least, and then Krishna's smiling. It seems callous, doesn't it? Callous. This is, the same point being made here. So then he says, Asochanan vasochastvam pragya bradam sabhasase gatasum gatasum sya nanu sochanti pandita. Now you're lamenting for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise, nanu sochanti. And of course, those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead is the translation. And anusochanti also has the connotation that don't go on lamenting. Anu, that prefix anu can mean follow or to go on. So anusocha, don't go on lamenting, so that you don't do your service to me, Krishna is saying, which was fighting in that case. So similarly here, Lord Chaitanya is not interested in the lamentation, but he's interested in continuing the services to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his service that way. There was a time also, we know that in the home of Srivas Thakur, there was kirtan going on with Lord Chaitanya, and one of Srivas Thakur's sons died during the kirtan. And you remember what happened?
Everybody was crying, but Srivas Thakur asked not to disturb the kirtan.
It wasn't that everybody was crying. It says that the ladies were crying.
Oh,
And then Srivas Thakur, he said, don't disturb Lord Chaitanya, don't disturb Lord Chaitanya's, the kirtan. Yeah. So anyway, later it came out and Lord Chaitanya did observe the funeral rites for the son, but he didn't want to disturb the ongoing devotional service of the chanting of the holy names. Lord Jesus Christ in this connection said, let the dead bury the dead, but you come with me. And it's not that one doesn't show any concern for the person. Lord Chaitanya already, he was ready to leave, and Advaita Acharya said, no, stay 2 to 4 more days. And Lord Chaitanya did, and he engaged and showed great affection to the devotees. But at that time, ultimately, he said, okay, now time to go. It's time. Even though it was difficult for the devotees, still he did. And his name remains Bhakta Vatsala. He's still very kind to his devotees. Acharya Prabhu, do you have any comment there? Maybe I had to leave. Okay. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna.
I'm
here,
Krishna.
I'm here, but I'm on the road now. I can't speak.
Okay, thank you though. Mother Sundari?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm wondering, in general, in India, I understand from devotees that I've spoken with who work in India that there is some criticism of the ISKCON prescribed Vanaprast, and not so much Vanaprast, but the then taking sannyas and, the father leaving the mother behind, especially if the mother doesn't have grown children to live with. It's been considered to be rather extreme by some Indian-born personalities, even Indians who are still living in India. So is this not the general prescribed way of the four ashrams? Is this not in general in India encouraged? Is this specific to ISKCON, or is it specific to the Vaishnav way of thinking? What's your understanding of this, Prabhu? I mean, in other words, it's kind of considered callous. That's why.
Yes, it is callous. Gaudiya. This is Lord Chaitanya did that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his father died, so his mother was a widow. And he had he got married, his first wife passed away, but he married again. So he had a young mother without any children, and he left and took sannyas. So that would certainly, that would seem from a mundane moral point of view to be callous. But the instruction of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekang Sharanam Braja Aham Tvang Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayashyami Masucha. Give up all of the dharmas and take full shelter of me. So a sannyasi, that's ultimately what they do. It's not that everybody has to take sannyas, but that full service to Krishna, which might include sannyas, is the goal of all of us, man, woman, child, married, unmarried, everything. Yeah, there's a lot of people. They criticize Lord Chaitanya as well. There's the story that Srila Prabhupada said about Jamunacharya. Jamunacharya, this is the Sri Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya. Perhaps you know that story.
Mm.
So he was a householder, and he was thinking it's about time to renounce, but then his wife became pregnant again, and she died in childbirth, and there's this young baby. You know the rest of that story?
I'm not familiar.
So he's thinking, now I can't renounce. I have this child now. But then he saw, I forget what it exactly was, a child, a bird fell from the nest, and then some insect. I'm not exactly clear. I have to get it back to you. But he saw that Krishna had provided for this animal that had fallen away from its nest. And so he thought, oh, well, Krishna will provide. And he went and took sannyas. Oh my God. I mean, not that we're following this example, you follow, but even to the point of understanding that Krishna will take care of those things if you want to serve Krishna. So in ISKCON, we have encouraged people to serve Krishna, and sometimes they'll take sannyas not in their later days, but earlier in their life. And Srila Prabhupada didn't, he discouraged it initially, but if a person was serious and sincere, he would allow it. In some sampradayas, they don't allow sannyas. There are two prominent Vaishnava sons of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the other was named Lalit Prasad. Lalit Prasad put forward the idea, no sannyas. Maybe you didn't know. That was a difference between him and his brother, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I don't know if I've answered your question very well. What do you think?
That was wonderful. Thank you. I'm wondering if Lalit Prasad, then did he take on disciples?
Yes, he had disciples. Even some are still existing today. You can still read about them. He was going to give land to ISKCON at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's birthplace, but then something happened that didn't work out. He didn't give that land. But he and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even though they're both sons of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, did not say eye to eye. It's detailed a little bit in the book Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. But Srila Prabhupada visited Lalit Prasad Thakur when he sometimes came to Mayapur, but he didn't mix very carefully with him because he knew that Lalit Prasad criticized his older brother.
Mm.
And particularly, not just that, but that was one of the important things that Bhaktisiddhanta instituted sannyas. Sometimes people say, well, in Kali Yuga, sannyas is forbidden. Ashvamedha Gavalamban Sannyasya Pala Paitrakan. But Chaitanya quoted that verse to Jankazi. But we know that the founders of each of the sampradayas, there's 4 prominent Vaishnava sampradayas, and each one of them, the main teacher in each sampradaya was a sannyasi, and that was in Kali Yuga.
Mm.
All of Lord Chaitanya, so many of Lord Chaitanya's associates, close associates, Swarup Damodar, Prabodhananda Saraswati, Damodar Pandit, they were sannyasis. Ishwara Puri was a sannyasi. Madhavendra Puri was a sannyasi. They're all in Kali Yuga. It might sometimes be that a person does take sannyas prematurely, and that should be avoided. But the principle of sannyas was given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and exhibiting the principle of renunciation as one of the 6 opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I think we can finish this chapter. That'd be great. Let's see.
Katadora Gya Prabhu Kari Jodahata Acharya Prabodhi Kahe Kichu Mishtabata.
After he had followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for some distance, Advaita Acharya was petitioned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with folded hands. The Lord spoke the following sweet words.
Janani Prabodhi Kara Bhakta Samhadana Tumi Vyagra Hoire Karo Narahibe Prana.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Please pacify all the devotees and my mother. If you become agitated, no one will be able to continue to exist." We know in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a description of when the Acharya leaves, the spiritual master leaves, there's great lamentation. Of course, this isn't leaving for good, but there's lamentation. But Srila Prabhupada mentions there's the duty of the good disciple to continue to do service according to the instructions of the spiritual master. So that's Lord Chaitanya is entreating Advaita Acharya to encourage the devotees to continue not become agitated, but continue their service of chanting the holy names and engaging in Krishna's bhakti.
Ita Bali Prabhu Tanve Kari Alangana Nivritti Kariya Koila Svachanda Gamana.
Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Advaita Acharya and stopped him from following any further. Then, without anxiety, he proceeded to Jagannath Puri.
Gonga Tere Tere Prabhu Chari Jana Sate Nilandri Chalila Prabhu Chatra Bhogpate.
The Lord, with the other 4 persons, went along the banks of the Ganges through the path of Chatrabhog toward Nilatri, Jagannath Puri. Purport. In the southern section of Eastern Railway, in the district of the 24 Paraganas, is a station named Magrahata. If one goes to the southeastern side of that station for some 14 miles, there's a place called Jayanagara. About 6 miles south of this Jayanagara station is a village named Chatrabhog. Sometimes this village is called Khadi. In this village is a deity of Lord Shiva named Vajrukanath. A festival takes place there every year during the month of Chaitra, March, April. This festival is known as Nanda Mela. At the present moment, the Ganges does not flow there. On the same railway line is another station known as Baruipur, and near this station is another place called Atisara. Formerly, this village was also situated on the banks of the Ganges. One can go from this village to Panihati, and from there to Varahanagara, north of Calcutta. In those days, the Ganges flowed to the south of Calcutta through Kalighat, which is still known as Adiganga. From Baruipura, the Ganges branched out and flowed through Diamond Harbor near the Mathurapura police station. It is to be noted that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through all these places on his way to Jagannath Puri. Next 217. No, Shashi Shekhar, you're muted.
Sorry. Chaitanya Mangale Prabhura Niladri Gaman Bishtari Bharniyachena Dash Vrindavan.
In his book known as Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur has elaborately described the Lord's passage to Jagannath Puri. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through Bengal, he passed through Atisara Gram, Varaha Gram, and Chatrabhog. He then reached the Orissa province, where he passed through Prayag Ghat, the Suvarnarekha River, Remuna, Yajapur, where he bathed in the Dashashvamedha Ghat on the Vaitarini River, Katak, where the Mahanadi River flows, Bhubaneswar, where there is a big lake known as Bindu Sarobara, Kamalapur, and Ataranala. In this way, passing through all these and other places, he reached Jagannath Puri.
Advaita Grihe Prabhura Pilash Shune Jejana Achire Miraye Tanre Krishna Prem Dhan.
If one hears the activities of the Lord at the house of Advaita Acharya, he will certainly very soon attain the riches of love of Krishna. Haribol.
Sri Rupa Raghunath Pade Jada Ash Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Das.
Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan, Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Purport. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 3rd chapter, describing the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's stay at the house of Advaita Acharya, his acceptance of the sannyas order, and observation of daily festivals of Advaita Acharya's house, his congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and his feasting with all the devotees. Bol. Thank you. Thank you for hearing and listening.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mother Suma.
Hare Krishna. I have a question that when in Advacharya Prabhu's house, Srivas Thakur was also there, or he?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Vancha, Prananath Prabhu, you had a question.
No, Prabhu. I just wanted to thank you. So,
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.